How we see ourselves has so much to do with our relationships. So many of us tend to see ourselves way differently than others do. And though we know things about ourselves that others don't, there's a whole lot that others see about us that we don't. And so I'd like to talk to you right now about how to correct for that. In the I don't know, education world, there's this tool that we use called the Johari window. And I'd really like to use it for explaining what I'm talking about. So for the sake of, I'll try to make it easy as to understand as possible, but they talk about these four quadrants, right? So there's this first part of Christine that's called the open quadrant, the part where I am open about things about myself. So the open quadrant is where I know things about me and you know things about me. It's not hidden. So you all know I have blonde hair, blue eyes. I've got 6 grandchildren, 2 kids. I'm from Wisconsin. Yay, go Green Bay. Various things. The open quadrant is the part of yourself that you share with others when you first meet, likely on a first date or at a party or whatever. It's the safe things that, you're not afraid of showing people. So the second quadrant of ourselves, these next two are a little bit tricky because the second one I'm going to call the hidden quadrant. The hidden quadrant is that part of you, that part of me, that part of everyone that I know about myself, but you don't. It's the things that I'm either embarrassed of or I find risky. I don't want to share them with you. My sins, my failings, a lot of things. Like I'm not telling you that I got a DUI 30 years ago. I'm not telling you that I failed that test. I'm not telling you that, I think of a high school, I failed my driver's test. I'm not going to tell anybody. Sometimes the things that we hide are things that are sometimes good. Like I have this great desire to be the first person in my family to graduate from college. Well, why wouldn't you share that? It doesn't matter. For some people, that's hidden because maybe I come from a family where they say, you don't need to go to college. Everyone in our family's done well without it, or you're too stupid to go to college or whatever. So we protect ourselves, we protect information, and for whatever reason, we don't want to share it. The third quadrant that I want to share with you is called the blind. That's the part of yourself, that's part of you and me that I don't know about, but you do. And you know what I'm talking about. The blind quadrant is that part of yourself. Think of the alcoholic, right? Everyone knows he's an alcoholic except for him. Everyone knows that a person's got an addiction to prescription drugs, but not them. I would never be addicted to them. Don't you think I would know by now if I'd have an addiction to them? I can stop anytime, yet they don't, right? So the blind quadrant is that part which others see. I'll quickly tell you about the fourth quadrant, which is the unknown. That's the part of Christine Bacon that I just don't know about yet, and you don't know yet. And in our life, our goal is to die shrinking that quadrant as best as we can. Basically, when I die, I want to know myself as best as I possibly can. Now, the trick is to do that, I'm going to need your perception. So I'm going to need to hear what's in that blind quadrant. That's hard because we hear things from other people all the time and we choose to accept it or we choose to say, no, you're wrong. Now, that is hugely important. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the rule of three. When I was a young mother, I remember people would say, oh, you should put your kids to bed at a set time. No, you should let your kids fall asleep. Oh, you should let your kids wake up naturally. No, you should make your kids wake up. Oh, you should feed them this. You shouldn't do that. You should discipline like this. You shouldn't. And you'd have these voices coming in from everywhere. And I remember there came a point where I said, you know what? I can't listen to every voice, but I don't want to be so arrogant as to only think I know what's going on. I was a 19-year-old mother. I needed wise counsel. So one of the things I instruct people is find one or two people whose wisdom you greatly respect and listen to those people, preferably people who have had experience or gone before you in that area. And when they say yes, you respect it. When they say no, you respect it. And for me, one of those people was my mom. My mother was a great mother, and she would always point out the very good things that I did as a mom. But there were times where she'd say, that you're failing in that area. I remember when she said, she was with me once when I disciplined or didn't really discipline my baby. And she said, if your oldest child had done that, you'd have done X, Y, and Z. You are too easy on your baby. And I was like, no, I didn't want to hear it. But I respected my mom's opinion. So I say to you guys, in terms of shrinking that blind quadrant, if it's someone you respect, you best search yourself and not be arrogant. Is that person saying something that's just too hard to accept? Now, the other part in accepting this is this, the rule of three. It's biblical. The Lord says, seek wise counsel, make your acquaintances many, but your true friends and counselors few. So if one person says, oh, you've got a problem with, you're defensive, you don't necessarily have to listen to them. Two people say, yeah. But if three separate people have said, you're defensive, or you're not a good listener, or such and such, you best swallow your pride, because God might be trying to tell you something. I remember, heck, if you want to learn how to do this, get a podcast. You're going to hear lots of criticisms about yourself. But if I hear hundreds of people saying, this was a fantastic video, I'm not going to pay attention to the one person who says, oh, you're going to hell because you said something incorrect, whatever. Okay. But if I have a video where several people say, Christine, you're cutting off your guest, and I've also heard that from my mom or someone else in the past, which, by the way, when I had my radio show on Real AM radio for 11 years, I would hear that way too often. So I had to respect when I heard it again. It's like, okay. It helps you to improve the virtue of humility, to be like, you know what? Even though I don't see it, maybe I'm doing it. What are the things that people are trying to say to you? What are the things that you need to correct? Because it takes humility to offset your blindness about yourself. It takes humility to recognize that you may be protecting yourself with defensiveness. No, I don't do that. I perceive that you do this. No, I don't. There's someone I know that does it all the time. You're like, you're really defensive. No, I'm not. I said, just the act of saying, no, I'm not, is defending yourself. This person has a hard time getting it, but whatever, maybe God will work with that person sometime. So what did you get from this? That to know thyself, you need to open yourself up to the criticism of others. That you don't have to listen to everyone's criticism, but you need to listen to some people's criticism. Who? The wise people who you've chosen to consider good, wise counsel, the people who know you best, your mother, father, sister, brother, your spouse, and the rule of three. Because sometimes it's a complete stranger that says to you, hey, man, you're this, you're that. No, I'm not. Sometimes strangers, your boss, a colleague, an employee, a customer might say something to you. You're like, I've heard that before. When you die, you want to be the best version of yourself that you can. So when the Lord looks at you and he says, I tried to tell you such and such, you wouldn't listen. You want to be able to say, Lord, I tried and I humbled myself. But that's why of all the virtues, humility is the greatest, because it offsets your arrogance. It offsets your pride. It offsets your fear of listening to others, your inability to learn. And God is pleased when you're willing to learn from others. Growth is a beautiful thing. And you need to be vulnerable to do this. Are you struggling in this area? I know I have. We all have. If you need help, look me up. Go to my website, breakfastwithbacon.com. Email me. We'll set up a time. But if not, I guess this video is for someone else. But I tend to think many of us need this video. That's my lesson for today. Thanks for listening to another Bacon Bit. And you know how I'm going to end it. Live your life sunny side up. It's too important to live facing downward.